First of all, I want to tell you how thrilled I was to be invited here to kick off Women's Her Story Month. I am old enough to remember when nobody thought women had stories worth telling. And here we are today having a whole month devoted to our accomplishments, our contributions. It's just a fabulous thing. And I'm going to be talking about the ties that bind, but I just wanted to spend a few minutes talking about women. And when I was thinking about the power and the brains of women, there were two stories that came to my mind. One was of a family gathered in the hospital to wait for a doctor who was examining one of their loved ones. And the doctor came out, he looked very grave, and he said to them, "It's very dire. It's very, very serious." He said, "The only thing that is going to help your loved one is a brain transplant. It's risky. It's not a procedure that's been done very often, but if it works, it will be a miracle." Now, medical insurance will cover the surgery, but you're going to have to buy the brain. So there was a moment to take in this very bad news, and then someone said, "Well, how much is the brain?" And the doctor said, "The male brain is $5,000. The female brain is $200. Well, the men in the room puffed up their chests, feeling important, and the women were kind of, a little embarrassed and looking down. And someone in the back said, well, why is there a difference in price?" So the doctor looked up and he said, "Well, it's very, very simple. We have to charge less for the woman's brain because it's the only one that's been used." And, you talk about the power of women. Well, at some point in the far future when the world ends, all the people of the world gathered God, and God said, "I want all of the men here to form two lines. The men who were dominated by their women, I want in one line, and the men who dominated their women, I want in another line. All the women, you just go with St. Peter, he'll help you get settled." So he came out a few minutes later. The line of men who had been dominated by their women was like 100 miles long. And in the line of men who dominated their woman, there was one man standing. Well, God is terribly upset. He turns around to the long line of the 100 men and he said, "I made you in my image. I gave you my best qualities. How could you let your lives be dominated by women? And you, my son, tell me how you managed to be in the line where men dominate their women." And the guy looks at him and he says, I don't know, my wife told me to stand here." Now, I also think there are just a few things I need to tell you about what women should have and women need. Every woman should have a set of screwdrivers, a cordless drill, and a black lace bra. Every woman should have one friend who makes her laugh and one who lets her cry. Every woman should have a feeling of control over her destiny. Every woman should know how to fall in love without losing who she is. Every woman should know how to quit a job, how to break up with a lover, and how to confront a friend without losing the friendship. Every woman should know when to try harder and when to walk away. Every woman should know that she can't change the shape of her calves, she can't change the width of her hips, and she can't change the nature of her parents. And every woman should know that her childhood may not have been perfect, but it's over. Give it up. And every woman should know what she would or wouldn't do for love. Every woman should know how to live alone, even if she doesn't like it. And every woman should know where to go when her soul needs soothing. And finally, every woman should know what she can and she can't accomplish in a day, a month, or a year. Well, tonight I'm going to be talking about the ties that bind. The relationships that women have with their mothers, their daughters, their sisters, and their best friends. And that always reminds me of just one more story. A man dies and goes to heaven, and when he gets there, St. Peter looks at his CV, and it's very impressive. The man is a devout Catholic, and all of his life he never missed a church service on a Sunday. His children were baptized, his children were confirmed. He was on every committee in the church that you could serve on. And St. Peter looks at all this, and he is very impressed. And he says to the man, you know, when we get someone this devout here, it isn't all that often, I would like to reward you in some way. Is there something we could do for you? And the man looks up and he says, oh, yes, St. Peter, all my life I have dreamed that one day I could meet the Virgin Mary because there's something I'm just burning to ask her. Oh, St. Peter says, not a problem. See that door ahead? Go through the door, down the hall, fourth door on your right, open it, you'll see Mary sitting there. So he goes through the door, down the hall, fourth door on the right, he opens the door, and there is Mary sitting on a chair and knitting. So he walks up to her and he says, Holy Mother, he said, this is such an honor. I can't tell you how thrilled I am to meet you. There's something I need to ask you. All my life, whenever I saw an image of you, if it was a painting, a stained glass window, a statue, there you are, a mother with your new baby. And you're holding the infant Jesus in your arms, and you're looking at your baby, and you look so sad. I could never understand why a mother with a new baby would look so sad. And Mary looks up and she says, it's very simple. I wanted a girl. Well, I believe that every mother wants a daughter. I remember when I was pregnant with my daughter, my first child. In those days, we didn't know what the sex of a baby was going to be. They didn't have all this high-tech stuff. So when people said to me, you know, do you want a boy? Did you want a girl? I would just say, I only want a healthy baby. But in my heart, I didn't want a healthy baby. I wanted a healthy girl baby. Because I wanted someone fashioned in my own image, somebody that I could understand, that I could identify with, that I could shop with. I mean, let's be serious. What is it that mothers and daughters most like to do? Oh, the mother-the-daughter relationship. I mean, nothing could be more wonderful. Nothing could be more complicated. Nothing could be more difficult. Now, mothers are easy to describe. The mother is the one who gives birth, or in the case of an adoptive mother, the one who raises the child. And you know what all mothers have in common is that they worry. Mothers don't sleep, of course. They just worry lying down with their eyes shut. And I think it's very interesting that the word mother can be a noun or a verb, the verb to mother. But there is no verb to daughter. You've never heard that word. And there are no books written on how to daughter, although there's a gazillion books written on how to mother. Now, my daughter, a psychologist, is threatening to write that book, and I frankly dread till she gets to that. Now, we expect our mothers to be our teachers. That's the common thing. I know my mother taught me so many things. I mean, my mother taught me about stamina. You'll sit in that chair until you finish your spinach. And my mother taught me about behavior modification. Stop acting like your father. And my mother taught me all about anticipation. Just you wait till we get home. However, mothers can also learn from their daughters, and that was something that came as a surprise to Brenda Vila, and the discovery changed her life. Not long after Brenda finished nursing her second daughter, she discovered that she had breast cancer, and she underwent a double mastectomy. When the bandages came off, the sight of her scars made her cringe. She felt deformed, and she went to great lengths to hide her body from her little girls. Then one day, the youngest burst in while she was getting out of the shower, and she saw Brenda drying herself. Brenda immediately covered her chest and tried to turn her back. But the little girl turned her around and pulled her down and said, "Mommy, can I kiss your boo-boos and make them better?" And she reached up and kissed both of the scars. And Brenda said that the look of love and warmth on her face was nothing like the disgust that I felt, but it was so genuine and pure And now not a day goes by that both my girls don't kiss my boo-boos. By accepting me when I was so ashamed of my body, they've given me the freedom to accept myself. And every time they kiss my boo-boos, they help me to love me as a scarred person. So in my heart, my daughters are my teachers and my healers. Now today, more and more women are having their children later and later in life. Elsa was 43 when her first daughter was born, and 52 when she had her second one she had a little fertility help with. But she was great. She says having children in midlife is better than Prozac. And it's because you're so busy with the kids, you have no time for menopausal depression. You know, it's not always easy, though. She told me that she went to camp one day to pick up her little girl, Susan, and one of the girls came over to her and said, "Are you Susan's grandma?" And she said, "Well, you know I have gray hair, but actually I'm her mother." And the little girl said, "Oh, I understand that. My daddy's 65. Now, on the other hand, you have more and more daughters having to take care of their mothers as they live into their 80s and their 90s. When I met Mama Kate, she was 97 or 8. She lived to be 103. At that point, she had already outlived 2 of her daughters, and her formula for living was just as simple as her apple pie recipe. She lived in West Virginia, and she said to me, "Lord, Lord, Lord, I just lived a straight life. I never used bad language. That's a sin. I never smoked. I never drank. And I worked real hard. I did. You know, I never think about being tired. I never complain neither. My girl's asking me all the time, 'Mama, are you stressed?' I tell them, 'Well, what's it mean to be stressed? Maybe then I'll know if I is or I isn't.'" Now, I always tried to treat my girls the same because I believe in equals. I told them you must always be nice. And I also said, if you lay down with dogs, you get up with fleas. They knew what I meant. Now, have any of you seen that pillow that says, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, I am my mother after all"? I love them. Well, you know, certainly we do examine our mothers as we get older to kind of check out how we're going to weather the passage of time. When I interviewed Cindy Crawford and her mother, she confided to me that every time she comes home to visit her mom, she makes sure she gets a chance to look at her naked because she wants to see how things are going to go for her. And she said, "So far, I got nothing to worry about. The boobs are still good." You know, and it's just amazing how at some point in your life, you're in your 20s usually, or your 30s, you've probably by this time have children of your own, and all of a sudden you'll make some familiar gesture or some words will come out of your mouth and you'll go, "Oh my God, I'm becoming my mother," right? Now maybe it's that first time you say to somebody when they come in your house, "Are you hungry? Are you thirsty? Can I get you something?" Or it's the time you say to one of your kids, "I never talk to my mother like that." Or it's that first time you tell your child, "Put on a sweater," because you happen to be cold. Or you say to your daughter, "Oh, honey, it'd be so much prettier if you get that hair out of your eyes." Now, being a mother myself, I do think that one of the hardest things we have to learn is how to stop giving advice to our daughters. Oh, I know, my God, my tongue was bleeding when my daughter had her first child. I mean, I think what mother among us does not have that uncanny ability to turn pearls of wisdom into a choker? No. Here was a conversation that I witnessed between Janet Leigh before she died and her daughter, Jamie Lee Curtis. Now, we went out to interview them in California, and Jamie had a very bad cough. And I don't like the way that cough sounds, Jamie. I know, Mother. Well, there's this wonderful new antibiotic. It's called Cipro. It cured your stepfather when he had all that gunk in his chest. Yeah, I know, Mom, you told me. C-I-P-R-O, Cipro. I want you to ask your doctor about it. Yeah, okay. Cipro, C-I-P-R-O, spells it a second time. Oh, I know you're not going to listen to me. And Jamie says, you're right, get over it, I'm not. However, I will tell you, they had a very, very beautiful relationship, and particularly they had a tradition I just loved. Every year on her birthday, Jamie calls her mother at 8:36 a.m. precisely. And Janet answers, and Jamie pretends she's a birthing coach. All right, Janet, keep breathing. In, breathe in. Breathe out. Push, push, breathe, push. And she goes on like that for about a minute or two, and precisely when the clock hits 8:37, she starts to wail like a newborn. And I thank her for pushing so hard. And Janet laughs, and then she cries. And then Jamie told me that whenever I see someone on their birthday, I make it a point to ask them, did you call your mother today to say thank you? Now, one of the very salient features of the mother-daughter relationship is the way that mothers and daughters are always shifting and changing in their roles. You know, when you're like 8 years old, you think, oh, my mom knows a whole lot. By the time you're 12, you think, well, maybe my mom doesn't know everything. By the time you're 16, your mom is hopelessly old-fashioned, out of date. But then you reach 35, and you say to yourself, you know, before I make this decision, I think I'm going to call mom and talk it over with her. And then you get to the point when your mom's no longer there, and you say to yourself, I wish mom were around so I could call and discuss this with her. Now, the early years of motherhood are the easy ones. The mother gives, the daughter takes. But by the time they get to their terrible teens, that conflict has set in that is the difficult rite of separation. And that, of course, is the central issue for the mother-daughter relationship. Daughters want desperately to be independent, but at the same time, they want to be connected. And how to be connected and independent is the struggle between mothers and daughters. I remember when we were doing our book, Mothers and Daughters, we did an interview with one daughter and mother who were still having this conflict. The daughter was about 30, the mother was about 50. And at one point, the daughter burst into tears and she said, you know, the problem is, Mom, I look like you, I sound like you, I've got your hair, I've got your eyes, I've got your mouth, and if I'm you, how am I ever going to be me? And that is the struggle of the mother and the daughter. Now, you know, mothers love to brag about their daughters, though. I remember 3 women were having lunch talking about who had the most wonderful daughter. And the first woman said, my daughter is the best. My daughter took me on a cruise for my birthday. Now, my daughter is a doctor, so she had to close her practice, and she took me on a cruise on the Sea Goddess, that fancy ship. I mean, you put your shoes out at night, and they polish them for you. And a whole week, it was just the 2 of us together. And the other woman says, well, I mean, that's nice, but my daughter, did you see the Mercedes when you were coming in that's parked there in the lot? My daughter brought me that for my birthday. That was just one of the gifts she brought me. Took me out to dinner, see a show. She's always doing things for me. And the third woman said, well, you know, clearly your daughters have given you some very nice gifts, but I've got the best daughter of all. My daughter, who is a busy, busy lawyer, every day leaves her office at 1 o'clock. She gets in a taxi, she drives across town, and she pays somebody $150 an hour just to talk about me.